Hey everyone, back to talk about my septoplasty experience. This is going to be the video focusing on the surgery day as well as some of the recovery afterward to give you a better idea of what this surgery is actually like. The first thing I'll say about this type of surgery is it is, or at least it was for me, absolutely painless. There's a lot of videos on YouTube that say it's the worst pain anyone's felt in their life. You know, it's horrible. Felt like your face was falling off, all sorts of crazy stuff. I would say generally, if you follow my advice and you pick a really good surgeon in the advice I gave in the previous video, you probably won't have that kind of experience. The way my surgeon described it to me is it's more of like a feeling of pressure or like that you have a cold than it is, an extremely painful recovery process. And I found that to be absolutely true. The most painful part of the entire experience was just getting the IV in at the surgery center I went to. It wasn't anything about the recovery afterward or anything I felt during the surgery itself. And to that point, it is a general anesthesia procedure typically. So I was completely knocked out, and it was actually my first time having any kind of general anesthesia. It's really not a big deal at all. They ask you some questions beforehand, like, has your family had issues with anesthesia before? Is everyone fine with that? Do you have any allergies? And they try to make sure you're in good shape to actually get it. But it's one of those things where you can't even stay awake, even if you want to. They'll typically count you down, or they'll give you some kind of instruction like, oh, you're about to go under, we'll give you the happy juice now, or something like that. And really, as soon as they say that, you'll say okay, and then about a few seconds will pass and you'll just be out like a light. It feels like you're extremely tired and you're just dreaming immediately. But even so, you won't really remember what's happening. You won't even, I didn't have a dream or I didn't remember anything. I remember them telling me that, and then I woke up when it felt like it was about 30 seconds later. And 0 out of 10 pain level. My lip was a little bit numb because after this type of surgery, they'll give you local anesthesia in your lip for whatever reason, maybe just to help you wake up a little bit easier. But I didn't feel anything. I felt completely awake and mentally alert. I was like cracking jokes with my friend that showed up to get me, and he was shocked because I guess some people do react differently to it. I think he was completely like out of it for a couple of days after he had general anesthesia, but I could have gone to work the same day, honestly. I felt fine and I felt completely like myself. So that was my experience with it. They also advised me that afterward your throat might be a little bit sore because they stick a giant tube down there to help you breathe while you're having the surgery. And that was true for me, but it was honestly such a mild discomfort that I didn't even need the throat spray that they mentioned. It just felt like, I don't know, I ate some hot food and the throat was a little bit sore. So I just let that work itself out over the course of a few days and made sure I was drinking water and stuff like that. And yeah, it was gone within the first week, no problem. I also heard about symptoms where your lips or your teeth might be numb. My lip was for the first, couple hours afterward, just because there was local anesthesia there. But as soon as that wore off, it was completely fine. My teeth felt fine. I was able to eat normally. Right after surgery, you're not really supposed to eat normal food, but I did, and I was okay. So probably take it a little bit safer than I did, and just make sure you're drinking a lot of water and you're eating soft food and stuff like that. But again, I really didn't have any pain, and I felt fine other than feeling like I felt like I had a cold or something happened in my nose, which it did, but I felt really good other than that. And I was advised to take a bunch of pain meds. They gave me some sort of opiates, I think Vicodin. But I talked to my surgeon about that because I have some addiction issues in my family and I didn't want to deal with it. So they mentioned, you'll be fine with Tylenol after this kind of thing. It's really not that big of a deal. I ended up taking like maybe 1 or 2 Tylenol just on day one, and then I didn't need anything else the entire time. Another thing you should keep in mind is even if you want to do the opiates that they give you, there's a lot of side effects with those. So number one, obviously they can be highly addictive even if you take the recommended dosage. They can also cause constipation, mental issues, and other things. And you can avoid all of that kind of stuff by just taking Tylenol. So that's sort of what I would recommend, or just keep in mind the side effects. Again, though, you shouldn't need anything too severe in terms of pain meds. It's really not a painful surgery. You'll just feel some pressure and congestion for the first week or so. What I will say is that this is more of an annoying surgery than people will make it out to be. So it's not painful. It is very annoying, probably 9 or 10 on the annoyance scale, and then, like a 1 on the pain scale. So what do I mean by annoying? You can't blow your nose for several weeks. You can't snort. You can't drink booze for a little bit. That's not that annoying, but just keep that in mind. You can't go out drinking, and you won't want to probably for the first week or two. But the sneezing part is really annoying because there's so many times you just want to like blow your nose or sneeze and you can't. And another thing I'll say is you really won't be able to sleep for the first several days, or at least I wasn't very well because my nose was just so congested. There was a bunch of phlegm and other nasty stuff that kept going down my throat and keeping me up. Again, though, I wasn't in pain. It was just the annoyance of all that stuff going on in my nose that made it so I couldn't sleep pretty much at all. You'll need some amount of mental toughness to deal with this. So you just have to be prepared to do that. And I think some people understate that and said they slept like a baby. Honestly, I have no idea how, because there's just so much like blood and mucus and all that kind of stuff. The most annoying part is I would try to sleep and then my nose would start like bubbling just when I was about to fall asleep because there's just so much congestion in there, and that would wake me back up. So it was just this constant process of like lying down, trying to get comfortable. Nose would do the bubbling thing, which was kind of like a loud noise. My surgeon said it was normal just because of the congestion, and then I would wake back up. So first few days I definitely didn't sleep at all, and then I was able to sleep pretty normal, especially after I was able to lie down normally. Another annoying thing is you have to keep your head elevated. So that's what I meant by lying down. Normally, the first week, you basically have to sleep with 2 or 3 pillows and your head's way up there, and you're just not going to be comfortable. Unless you're a back sleeper, then maybe, but it's really just not comfortable at all. So on the second week, I was able to sleep normally again, and by then they had taken out all the stuff in my nose, and it was just a lot more comfortable. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So one thing I'll say is in the first week after surgery, you want to clean out your nose multiple times per day. So I recommend this saline spray called Simply Saline. There's other ones you can buy on the market, but Simply Saline in particular was the best one I found, and what my surgeon recommended. It's a spray bottle, so you just spray up there 3 times a day, and then you have to clean your nose out with a Q-tip with, in my case, mupirocin. It's basically a antibacterial cream, and it needs a prescription, so your surgeon will tell you to use that or something else, typically. So there's a really good video I'll link down below of how to actually do that, because honestly, my surgeon didn't give me that much instruction in terms of how to apply some of this stuff in your nose, but there's a really great video, so just watch that below and it'll explain exactly what to do, and it's what worked for me. Something you might also notice on the first week is this dark gel-like substance that keeps coming out of your nose. That's basically surgical packing, and you can just sort of let it come out. It'll probably come out naturally as you're cleaning with your Q-tip. But it looks very strange, so I was a little bit freaked out at first. I thought it was like blood or a blood clot or something like that, but it's not. It's just the packing. And moving on to week 2. So like I was mentioning, the stitches and the splints that are going to be in your nose after this kind of surgery, most surgeons will put in a splint, and that's to prevent the septum from moving back to the position it was in. This comes out in week 2. And that's probably the biggest moment that really like improved my quality of life. So as soon as they took that out and they cleaned out the nose with whatever tool they use in the office, I was basically able to breathe again, and really for the first time out of my nose. And I felt a lot less congested and everything. It was just sort of like uphill from there. So, or down, like the pain or the discomfort, I guess, went down from there. And then I was able to feel a lot better. But I will say, contrary to some of the videos I watched, my nose was not really completely unblocked when they removed the splints. There's all these like sensationalized videos of people like, oh my God, I can breathe. Well, everything's amazing. It's not really like that. You're probably still going to have a lot of, like swelling in there and some congestion because you just had surgery. And it seems to improve over time for me, which is also what my surgeon said. So that I did have some improvement as soon as he took that stuff out, obviously, but it wasn't perfect. And honestly, it's still not perfect a couple months later. It's getting better and better and better. And I can definitely use my nose now, which I've never been able to do in my life. So I'm definitely happy I did the surgery. It's just, don't expect like perfection, especially not on the first week. It'll take many, many weeks and months and up to a year and a half again to really feel the full effects of the surgery. So this is not something you should do unless you're really, really suffering and you feel like your life is horrible because of this, because otherwise it's a very long recovery process. One thing I will say, when you get those stitches removed and everything like that, at the start of the second week, make sure you go to the office with some tissues. And the reason you want that is because I didn't think about this, but as soon as they take the stitches out, your nose is going to start bleeding again a little bit because, they just removed like a sharp object from your nose. It kind of makes sense. So I didn't have tissues and I had to ride the subway home and I just had a bunch of people kind of looking at me as I had this nosebleed. So I wish I had some tissues. So just bring those with you and just carefully wipe your nose afterward. And it'll be a pretty small nosebleed. It'll go away after like a day or so. But just expect that to happen. Cool. So that's basically the surgery experience after getting this type of surgery and what to do in the first and second week. Main takeaways, just keep in mind, again, recovery process is very long. It is very annoying. You're not going to be able to blow your nose and all the other things I talked about. And you're not going to be able to sleep for the first week, so be prepared for that. But otherwise, it was a lot easier than I expected on the pain scale. So I hope this kind of information is helpful. If it was, make sure to like and subscribe, and maybe I'll make some of these videos like this again. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.